Hello, and thank you for being with us. We are very excited here at the NBDA to welcome the team at IMBA. This is a really strong partnership that the NBDA has had with IMBA for a number of years, and they have a lot of good initiatives going on that we thought our members really needed to know about. So we are thrilled to have them with us, and I am going to just pass it over with more information. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Rachel. My name is Dave Wiens, and I'm the executive director at IMBA. I'm based in Gunnison, Colorado. And boy, I've been riding bikes for a long time, and I'll never forget, going into bike shops as a little kid, and getting that first bike and getting those accessories. And I rode a Schwinn Varsity. Some of you can relate to that. All over the place, all over Denver. Born and raised in the suburban Denver, and then in high school worked in a mom and pop type of a store, and we sold 10 speeds, lots and lots of 10 speeds. They didn't bring the mountain bikes in because that was just going to be a fad, wasn't going to really stick. It was kind of interesting, but eventually then started riding mountain bikes a ton, and here we are, 40, 50 years later. Still get as much of a kick out of riding as bikes as I ever have, but also been involved in trail advocacy locally in Gunnison for several decades, and jumped at the opportunity to try to help IMBA 5-6 years ago, and Kent and I have been making progress ever since. And with that, I will introduce Kent McNeill, IMBA's CEO, and someone who certainly has chops in the bicycle industry at the retail level. Kent.
All right, Dave. Well, contrary to what Zoom might make you believe, that I'm Dave's stunt double here on the bottom for the name. Kent McNeill, glad to be with you all. Based out of Omaha, Nebraska, and have a bit of a history with retail. As for 15 years, I was an independent bicycle dealer myself, and really found that retailers have a unique ability to build community around their shops, and use their shops as a place to bring about change and bring about better infrastructure and better experiences for everybody on two wheels. And so just a big fan of the IBD and its role in communities as well as in the bike industry, and happy that you all are continuing that work, and look forward to discussing more today how perhaps partnering with IMBA can bring about more mountain bike experiences around where you retail and where you live, work, and play. So thanks for having us, and we'll get things started.
Excellent. And just a couple of housekeeping things. After the call, Rachel will send out to everybody an email with a PDF with some basically a resource package for retailers, and there'll be some various links and materials within that PDF that you guys can check out at your convenience. Also, if you have any questions as we go, Rachel's going to be kind of monitoring those, and we're happy to answer questions in line, and also at the end. Our presentation certainly won't take the entire time, so feel free to fire off any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to get those answered. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. What we really set on a few years ago was this idea of the importance of more trails close to home, and really that defines everything that IMBA does these days. And it's expanding and increasing, the number of places that have more trails close to home. Nothing could be more important than that. And as we think about that, one of the analogies we often use are, what if mountain bike infrastructure was as common as ball fields? That's something in the United States. Every community has a ball field, and we'd love it to get to the point where every community that you rolled into, you ask them, where are your mountain biking trails? And they would point, hopefully in a few different directions, actually. And that's something that we'll get into. So if you look at the tiles here in the upper left, that's really where this sport started, was with single track trails, multi-direction, multi-use. And certainly that's still, a big part of what we do. And right next to the mountain biker, you see some runners out there. And that's a really important aspect that we're going to hit on. Oftentimes we're not just out there alone as mountain bikers, but we're sharing the trails with lots of other users. But that then became flow trails. Flow trails often are directional, and that's a really big deal in mountain biking, especially when we're talking about having other users and areas that have limited sight lines. And as mountain biking, the speeds have increased over the years. Skills have gotten better, bikes have gotten better, and any of you who are on the call who ride, you know what it's like being on a busier system with lots of blind spots, and how careful we have to ride to avoid some of those conflicts. Top tracks and bicycle playgrounds are something that are so powerful for communities to have, and we're getting a lot of interest in this kind of infrastructure. And particularly if we're talking about underserved communities, they may not have the size of parks that we can put 3, 5, 10-mile trail systems in, but there's definitely parks where top tracks and bicycle playgrounds can come into play. Skills trails, you can see some of the different kind of features that we can have. People really like these, and they work well for programming for youth, also for adults. The more that we can help people become proficient mountain bikers through skills clinics and things like that, the more of these riders we're going to retain. It's certainly something as retailers that you guys could help with. Find out who's doing skills instructions in your area. If we had a list of all the people who thought they wanted to go mountain biking, got a bike, borrowed a bike, went out, got on the wrong trail, didn't go with the right person for whatever reason, didn't have a great experience, and we lost those people. And we can keep those people through the combination of skills instructions and then great places for those skills to take place. So those skills trails are really important. Pump tracks and pump parks. You notice here that we're not showing necessarily dirt pump tracks, although those are still very common and great assets. We're really moving toward asphalt pump tracks, and that's a lot like artificial turf versus natural grass for a ball field. There's no maintenance, it lasts forever. Dirt pump tracks are tough because they essentially just melt in the elements. They require tons of upkeep. Dirt jumps are really popular, and in a place here you can actually see that you've got some wooden lips on those jumps. So they're addressing that aspect of dirt jumps too, where dirt needs that constant maintenance. And then slope style trails that are very innovative and very challenging. There's so many riders with phenomenal skills, and they really want to be challenged. And we need to look no further than Northwest Arkansas to see a place that's really pushing the needle on some of the types of trails that are available for experienced and advanced riders. But at the same time, we're very much about all of the above. And that goes to having, miles and miles of family-friendly greens and these kinds of double black experiences and everything in between. And that's what really, makes for fantastic mountain biking. And bike parks, places that are apps, when you roll through the gateway into these places, there's so many different kinds of features. Many of them I've just been talking about. And then at the very lower right corner, youth MTB competitions and programming. We're talking NICA. We're talking about other middle school and high school mountain biking programs, Little Bella's, Parks and Rec mountain biking programs. It's as simple as that. And you guys know this. We're seeing so many kids riding now, and we didn't see kids riding mountain bikes 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was almost non-existent. And now with the industry making fantastic kids bikes, with NICA and other programming really spreading the word, and kids and families having so much fun riding bikes, it's really what we see as the modern gateway to the bicycle, where some of you that are around my age in the room, we used our bikes to get around to people's houses, and it was our transportation, it was our freedom. Now that landscape has changed, and I think the mountain bike and mountain biking infrastructure, great places to ride close to where people live, are what are going to supercharge getting kids on bikes. Kent, anything to add to the slide?
I think, just from a retailer's perspective, what really struck me about this slide when we put it together at IMBA is how evolved the sport of mountain biking and the recreation of mountain biking is today versus what it was 20 years ago, and how many on-ramps, when you look across these different types of infrastructure, there are for the broader community to engage and get into mountain biking. And whether it's starting with top tracks and playgrounds up to different styles of riding and riding experiences. And when this infrastructure exists in a community, the propensity for the community and the engagement of the community into the infrastructure to become future customers of yours really gets a lot bigger. And you grow that pie by having this amount of infrastructure there and the different types of programming that pops up around this infrastructure. Whether it's adult skills courses, jump classes, little Bellas to NICA, et cetera. IMBA's really helping across the spectrum bring all of these types of infrastructures to life in a community. And we'll talk more about how we're doing that today. When you look back 20, 30 years ago, the upper left that's what we did. Mountain bikers and volunteers built those multi-use single track trails and still do today. A lot of this other infrastructure takes a different approach, takes funding, and that's where IMBA has evolved and can help partner with you and in your community to make this happen. So with that, we set out in 2020. We gave ourselves a moonshot goal of seeing if we could accelerate mountain bike infrastructure building in communities. And we said, we're going to set a goal to see if we can do or partner with and help bring this about in 250 communities by 2025. And we started measuring the communities that engaged with us, which really qualified. Have they reached out? Do they want help? Are they plugging into the tools and resources that we have? That's what the number on the right represents, of how many communities have reached out to us for that help. And sometimes it's our IMBA local organizations reaching out. Sometimes it's a different entity within the community, and we'll talk more about that. But this includes IMBA local orgs, advocacy orgs, as well as a lot of other community stakeholders and funders that are partnering with IMBA today to bring this more involved infrastructure to life. The 79 in committed, and these numbers are current as of the end of September, are communities that have gotten beyond just being interested to the point where they have professional plans in hand, and they're working to raise the funding and the community will to bring those plans to life. And 68 is where we score so far in 2022 in terms of the number of communities that have added new and more diverse infrastructure, skill diverse infrastructure, or experience diverse infrastructure into their community for mountain bikers.
Yeah, that 366 number, it seems like that number ticks up weekly. We're contacted by more communities that are interested in realizing trails and mountain biking infrastructure for their community.
So what that looks like on a national scale domestically for the U.S. is here. We've color coded these to where things have been built, where things are planned, and those communities that are engaged in the conversation and working to get to committed or built. And these dots keep getting added, as Dave said, daily. As you think about where you retail and where you live, if there's not a dot there, we'd love to put one there and partner with you and your community stakeholders to make this happen where you guys live and work and play. So at IMBA, our mission is to create, protect, and enhance great places to ride, and that remains unchanged. But we definitely have had to refine our vision and how we go about that work. And so we just wanted to talk a little bit about that here, just to kind of, you're probably aware of this because you are in retail and you see what customers want and probably are better connected to it than a lot of our other partners in the industry from the manufacturing side. But the IMBA's vision, when we looked at how do we create, enhance, and protect great places to ride, we set a new vision that everyone should have access to great places to ride. And that's ease of access, the ability to ride to your ride, not have to load up and drive 30, 45 minutes or more to a trailhead. And within that, we knew that trying to bring equity and access to that outdoor recreation experience was going to require new tools and resources. So when you look in a lot of communities, do they even have the green space available? Do they have the community will to do this? And is there programming and gear solutions for all parts of the community so that we're not just building trails in more affluent parts of the community or these types of amenities, but we're bringing it to every park and every aspect or every socioeconomic region of a community. And that's been a huge focus of ours as well. We'll show you some work that's been done there in a later slide. I think the shift from trail projects to trail systems, and this is a really important piece, as the riding experiences have evolved and changed, and the way that people want to experience their bikes has evolved and changed, we're really starting to work with communities about thinking about their overall system and how those experiences can be provided across the system, instead of trying to jam every type of experience in one park, or even worse, one trail. Is how do we provide the gravity experience, the jump experience, the bike park experience, as well as a single track, get out connected to nature experience. And so really starting to not have all multi-use or shared use, shared direction trails, but rather shared use and shared direction systems, where, and we'll talk more about this as well, and trails are common ground, but where users can have the experiences they want across the system. And so that we disperse some of the pressure as well on specific parks or trails themselves. So as we've been working on this, as we said before, the face of Trail Champions is evolving, and it oftentimes is your local advocacy group. But we're also seeing across our Trail Labs conferences that we're seeing a big uptick in community funders, community stakeholders, city council, economic development corporations, and chambers of commerce. There's a lot of values that the communities are starting to understand in natural surface infrastructure and mountain bike specific infrastructure. And those folks are coming to Trail Labs and learning with us on how to bring these systems to life. And so as you think through the community where you're at, you might be the trail champion yourself as the retailer, and be doing that advocacy work in your community. And if you don't, and you're not, that's okay. You may not have the time. We know retail's tough, but who in your community might be? Because you might look outside of an expanded view of just the normal mountain bike advocacy groups and think who else could be on this team and who else would see the benefit in this, as we bring the value to the community that's there. And some of the main levers that you'll kind of want to be thinking about related to that. If you have youth programming and they don't have a place, whether it's NICA, Little Bella's, other high school mountain bike skills programming, those groups, if they don't have enough infrastructure to support the number of kids they want to serve, that's a really powerful voice and tool in your community to advocate for more. There's the economic development of communities and bringing travel and tourism dollars to communities. There's the community health and wellness and childhood obesity epidemic that this built infrastructure can have a real and meaningful impact on. So healthcare providers, health systems, their foundations, and even just chambers of commerce, as you think about workforce attraction and retention in community, and brain drain in communities that don't keep their talent in their communities. Outdoor recreational infrastructure is a huge driver to keeping that talent around, and mountain bike trails and natural surface trails are a large component of that. So we just challenge you to think about your community and who those folks might be, and we'll talk more about as you identify them, how you might connect them to IMBA. And then Dave, you talk a little bit more about the bikes and the desired riding experiences, and you and I've talked about that, but I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, and we really hit on that in that very first slide with all those tiles, how mountain biking has gone off in so many different directions, all of them good. And one of the ways that IMBA is much different now than it was in the past was that, in the past it was volunteer mountain bikers building trails. They didn't cost communities anything. And what mountain bikers built was a lot of trails that were hard and harder. And that's where we really got a lot of blue and black single track. And it was great. And it was where we were at that time, but we've evolved now. And now that we think about mountain biking infrastructure as just that, and this is a bit of a sea change for a lot of the mountain bike clubs. But when we go to a community, and the communities are used to building ice rinks and pickleball courts and rec centers and swimming pools and things like that, the kind of numbers we're talking about for professionally planned, professionally designed, and professionally built trails, and in some cases, even professionally maintained trails, they don't bat an eye because that's their world. They don't have volunteers, dumping chemicals into the swimming pool. There aren't volunteers out there mowing along the ball fields. It's part of the infrastructure of the community. And trails, almost always rise to the top of their community surveys of the most desired amenities that the community can have. So we're certainly in the right place, and there's resources available for this. And then mountain bikers too, they've become so discerning that if you just go scratch a trail out kind of in the old school way, you hear about it, and mountain bikers really feel like we missed the mark there. So quality is really important. We'll talk a little bit more about Trails Are Common Ground and how IMBA has pulled together a coalition of other trail users, because, you know, with the expertise that we bring into mountain biking and trails, it's really important that we bring a lot of other folks along for the ride, because our experience ultimately depends on that. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the challenges that NICA, high school mountain biking, middle school mountain biking, and youth programming are experiencing just due to lack of infrastructure.
All right. Yeah, I think on that last point, for those of you that maybe have helped champion NICA leagues or have them, or, you know, other middle school, high school mountain biking where you're at, you know, Amanda Carey, the new president of NICA, will tell you that their biggest constraint to growth and programming participation is lack of infrastructure. And so we're right now working on a much deeper collaboration of how IMBA and our accelerator model with Trail Champions can really start to bring to life the infrastructure that's needed, so that programming and participation can continue to grow. So keep your eyes out for that as we go out through 2023. But I'm excited to really get to work and roll up our sleeves to be able to provide enough infrastructure and not have to turn kids away, which is actually happening within NICA leagues and teams where they don't have enough infrastructure to accommodate all the kids that are interested. And we all know if kids aren't riding, we're not getting the parents and siblings and other family members riding, and that's a real barrier to participation growth. And we're happy to be focused on solving that with our friends at NICA.
And guys, sorry, I'm having just a small technical issue here with the screen share, but I think I've got it on track.
All right. Well, while Dave works on that, oh, it's coming back. There we go. All right, I was going to pause and go back to, I talked a little bit about the accelerator model and how we work with communities to bring this infrastructure to life. And this is kind of busy, but I'd ask you to focus on the blue cog in the middle that drives it all. And the one thing that we've learned at IMBA over the years is that, you know, this work is not done by IMBA, and it's not done, you know, to communities or for communities. It's done by those in the community, those trail champions, those civic leaders, the folks that are really resourced and driven to bring about community change. And so what we've developed, the way we've developed IMBA for the future is we've mapped out what are the key steps in that system of bringing infrastructure to life, and how do we develop tools and resources to make that trail champion and that team of trail champions in a community get there faster, be more successful, and bring about the change they want to see more effectively and efficiently. And so as you look at this, you know, overview, we tried to put it all in a one-pager, and sometimes it gets busy. But that process is really important to know that IMBA is continuing to build tools and resources at every step of the way, so that we can help, again, bring more infrastructure to life more quickly.
And when you look at this, if you start at 11 o'clock with vision, and then you just sort of go clockwise around all the way back to stewardship, vision is the idea that you can have trails. Stewardship is once you have them and you're taking care of them. It's not necessarily, you know, a linear process, but generally all of these areas, assessment, access, planning, design, funding, creation, it all needs to be addressed at some point along there. And the trail champion and the team that person or those people put together is really crucial in moving these kind of projects forward.
All right, so we mentioned kind of feasibility studies or professional planning, and how we're moving away from, you know, multi-use trails to multi-use systems. This is an example of a community where we went in and we worked with a group of 30 stakeholders to say, what's the art of the possible in this community? And we mapped out all the open spaces, green spaces, public land that existed. And then we went further to say, okay, where's all the connectivity into these places? And we mapped out, you'll see on there, little emblems that look like NICA logos. Those are where all the NICA teams originate out of in the community. The stars are other youth serving program organizations in the community. And we overlaid both natural surface corridor trail connections that could happen or exist, and all the hard surface active recreational trail infrastructure that exists, as well as active transportation routes. So this was a really comprehensive way to say to a city or a community, hey, what could be if we're going to have mountain bike and trail infrastructure as commonplace as ball fields, what would that look like? And then within these parks, we also went and looked at what are the other recreational uses in these parks, what type of mountain bike infrastructure best fits here. So if you see the little pop out in the center of the screen, the particular park that's highlighted at the top, it was good for a lot of different type pump tracks to single track, et cetera. That's a very large Army Corps of Engineer dam site. And they had a lot of space to play with. So there you see yes a lot in there in terms of slope style and whatnot that could be added into that park, into that system, and be compatible with the other recreational uses that are there. And so this is one of the things that we're talking about with NICA, looking at where they're most resource constrained. How do we look at those communities where programming is strong but infrastructure isn't, and how do we bring to life that infrastructure? So when you get down to this is a park-specific plan coming out of that system. So the community weighed in, they ranked which parks they wanted to see develop first, which ones would be the most easy to implement. And out of that came a more detailed concept plan for a park. And this is one of those tools that we provide those trail champions in the community, because this tool in and of itself drives community engagement. It's something that funders can start to understand your vision. It also comes with a cost analysis and cost estimate of bringing this infrastructure to life. And we worked within this, as we do all of our concept plans, to say, let's bring about as much of different riding experiences as the park can handle successfully, and then make sure that it also serves youth programming needs, et cetera. So, and I know Dave and I've talked a lot about that, because the overlay, the value here is that this will serve the entire community, no matter if you're riding, trail running, et cetera. But that overlay that really meets the programming needs of youth is important. And Dave, why don't you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, one thing I know that that the high school leagues struggle with are both practice venues and competition venues. Competition venues really start with a parking lot. Where are we going to park? Anywhere from 300 to over 1,000 cars, because the leagues are becoming so popular. And then have a trail system that really works for the type of competition that we're having. So we're actually able to, in some situations, design what we call an event overlay into a trail system, where instead of the event organizers showing up and trying to figure out how to make it work, it's completely turnkey. Our planners and designers have already figured it out. And they've got the venue area, the tech area, the parking area, the way the trails are configured. It allows for the best possible riding experience, lots of single track, yet not too many sections of uninterrupted single track where there are no passing opportunities. So the event overlay is really important. And it's not just for mountain biking. Those event overlays can be used for all kinds of different events, from cross-country running, trail running, all sorts of other events as well. And then just citizens mountain biking races too. And the other one was practice venues, places where NICA teams can practice. Some of these NICA teams are huge, over 100 student athletes, and they can absolutely just take over certain trail systems and really kind of take them away from the general public in the afternoons. So we're able to actually, plan and design pockets and areas for the training to take place that really accomplishes two goals. One is it doesn't overwhelm a park and take it away from other high school team users, but it also provides a better coaching experience and a better training experience for those riders, because actually coaching a bunch of kids is actually, some of you have probably done it. You've been NICA coaches, and you know how challenging it can be to take a group of kids out on a mountain bike ride. Every intersection you have to stop, and the fast kids end up waiting. The slower kids never get to race. But in these purpose designed practice zones, you can actually post up coaches at certain places. The kids know they're doing this repetitive lap. and there's going to be a green, a blue, and a black option. And Jill can do the black option, Johnny can do the green option because he's a beginner. So those are just a couple elements when we get down to the individual park side that we get pretty excited about. And communities, they love this stuff. So during the pandemic, we were hearing about trails being overwhelmed, user experiences suffering, more conflict. So we came up with what we did was we pulled together a coalition of hikers, trail runners, equestrians, mountain bikers, and even motorized users, and got national organizations and some strong regional and local organizations together and said, hey guys, what can we do to address this? What are the challenges? What are the solutions? And this group came up with Trails Are Common Ground. And while IMBA pulled this group together, we're just another one of the groups that is involved. We don't own the resource. We're just another one of the groups involved. That's important that we articulate that. So what we came out of this was this movement called Trails Are Common Ground. And Trails Are Common Ground, really, we narrowed it down to 3 objectives. And the very first one that rose to the top was inclusivity. How can we make sure that everybody feels welcome and safe at trailheads and on trails, and allow everybody to experience what so many of us do on trails, the benefits, the health aspects, the mental health aspects are really important. And that was a big part of this. How can we make trails and trail systems reflect what our country looks like? And then the responsible use piece, and you guys are all familiar with this. This is basic trail etiquette, but instead of finger wagging and rules, we wanted to focus on kindness first and foremost, and then awareness. Actually being aware when you're out there, not unlike when you drive an automobile on the highway, and then specific knowledge. And there's certain things that you need to know when you're out there. How do you yield to a horse? What do you do when you see a trail runner? It's not as simple as some people make it out to be. And then the third one is modernization. And this is the one that we're really excited about on the planning and design and the new trails is how can we make trails have higher capacity for users of all kinds, lower opportunities for conflict, and higher user satisfaction. And we do that by designing modern systems. And one of the hallmarks of modern systems are pockets of separate use. This includes directional mountain bike only trails in some places. And it also includes trails that mountain bikes aren't allowed on, where hikers and trail runners and equestrians in some situations can go out on a trail and not worry about mountain bikers coming up behind them or coming upon them. So trail modernization can be odd even days, where we have this in different places around the country, and there's not any one way that works best for everything. It's definitely unique to just about every area, and it's not going to work in every single place either. But we're really getting a lot of excitement from all the different users of trails and also the land managers about really innovating trails and taking them to that next level through modernization to allow for better experiences for all users. And this really relates also to the e-bikes. And if we're going to be successful in integrating class 1 e-mountain bikes into non-motorized trails where it's appropriate, that's where this modernization is really going to come into play. Because if suddenly we have that many more bikes on trails, those directional trails for mountain biking only, and also the separate use trails for the other uses are going to be that much more valued and that much more important to minimizing conflict and keeping everybody out there having a great experience. This just shows you some of the different organizations that support Trails Are Common Ground right now. You'll see advocacy organizations. You see Latino Outdoors. You see Navajo Yes. There are certainly brands represented as well. But it really runs the gamut in the outdoor world. And we haven't come across anybody who's told us that this is a bad idea. So we just, continue to make progress with Trails Are Common Ground, and the movement continues to gain momentum. And part of that too are the resource hub that Trails Are Common Ground has created. So if you go to trailsarecommonground.com, and right now the resources that are there are solid, but they're ever increasing. We just added some e-MTB education to that for e-mountain bikers, more on the etiquette side and battery safety and things like that. But we're going to add more video content because we know that's really important for a lot of folks, and it's how they learn. So look for the resources at Trails Our Common Ground to continue to multiply. And this is one of the links that we'll send you in an email that'll have a resource package for retailers, and certainly Trails Our Common Ground and the resources there are one of those. And so these are just some of the ways that you guys can engage. And without trails and harmony among users, industry faces risks, and we're really seeing that now, particularly with e-mountain bikes becoming more popular. And there's a lot of misunderstanding and just concern, and it's not so much from mountain bikers. I mean, there's that whole world too, but really we think that's a smaller part. It's the other users that we need to be more concerned with. So it's really important in your communities to try to engage in the spirit of Trails Our Common Ground, and reach out to the hiking groups and the running groups and the equestrians if you have them, and even the motorized users, and really bring people together, because if we're all in our individual silos lobbing grenades at each other, nothing's going to work. So pulling together those community coalitions of trail users is really important. Kent, do you have anything to add to that part?
I just emphasize that the growth of Class 1 access is really dependent upon the other user groups not opposing it, especially on federal land, for those of you that are near or adjacent to federal land. But even in most communities, that there's a public process to allow that technology onto non-motorized systems. And so that user behavior and making sure new riders of technology, and even some old riders that have the new technology, remember that there is a responsible behavior expectation on non-motorized systems, and how we get that message out to consumers. The only way we can do that effectively is through retailers as they're buying the product. So the Trails Our Common Ground also helps us when we talk about unlocking momentum in a community as we plan those systems. The more natural surface trail users we have advocating for that infrastructure to come to life with their city stakeholders, the faster it comes to life. If it's just mountain bikers, it's slower, to be honest, in most communities. But having that broader voice that says, yes, let's plan systems, let's make sure we all have our place, that we can get out and have the experience we want. And then using professional planning and design services that IMBA provides to show them what that looks like is really, really important. So can't emphasize enough that Trails Our Common Ground is a really important tool to help us unlock momentum with trail champions and in your community. And then with that, I'll also offer, if you are a smart e-tailing customer, they are also developing assets that you can activate across your website related to Trails Our Common Ground as well. So make sure you ask your smart e-tailing rep about that if you're a customer of theirs. And then with the at the top bullet point here, engaging with your local trail advocacy organizations, we do have a retailer toolkit to make that easy, and how you can help send more people into those organizations to help them grow capacity, both in their advocacy voice as well as their capacity to steward the local trail systems. So if you're interested and don't have a effective relationship in that regard with your local trail advocacy org, please take a look at that retail partner toolkit. And then on the trail champions side, as we asked before, we'll send you some information of where to direct your trail champions in your community, but really help us connect to those folks. We're not in your community. We don't know who they are necessarily. We don't know the movers and the shakers, if you will, and the community builders. But if they're there and you can connect them to us in partnership, we will do our very best to make sure that they're successful, and they help bring about this infrastructure change in your community over time. So we just appreciate your ability to help us do that and find these unique individuals. So thank you. Dave, anything else to wrap up with?
I saw one question, and it was asking how we work with organizations like NEMBA, the New England Mountain Bike Association. And that's a great question. And one of the things that Kent and I really brought to our IMBA of the last 5 years is embracing those organizations that in the past haven't been necessarily IMBA organizations and have a lot of chapters. Like IMBA has a ton of chapters, and they've really operated independently of IMBA. And it's how can we help? And we engaged with Travis Council, the most recent executive director at NIMBA. Travis has moved on, and we actually are setting up a call with the new executive director of NIMBA for next week. Things happening in places like that. The New England area, Vermont Mountain Bike Association, Nick Bennett has been intricately involved in Trails Our Common Ground and the creation of that program. The Vermont Mountain Bike Association, really, I think the largest state organization out there right now. And Yvonne Krause and Evergreen up in Washington State is another organization. Was exchanging some emails with Yvonne, and we actually were able to help fund a trail project that they're working on now up on the Colonnade Bike Park, sort of upgrading that bike park that was under the interchange of the interstate. So we're partnering with everybody, and we really don't put any boundaries on who we'll work with. We'll work with anybody, and our sort of what we like to say is, how can IMBA help? And we're happy to step in. We were highly involved in forming e-MTB, which is the California mountain biking organization. And we had a flurry of emails going around this morning about how we can partner with the California state organization as well as the local organizations, and really get that local, regional, or state and national trifecta working as well as we can, because there's so many more things we can accomplish that way. And in this case, it's how can we, really try to get more and better mountain biking in California state parks, which has been a big challenge. So every state, every region, even localities have their challenges. And if IMBA can be of assistance, we'd certainly like to help. And sometimes it just takes us getting together with folks and rolling up our sleeves and discussing how that can potentially happen. That's all we have. I don't know if there's any other questions.
I don't see any more questions coming in, but if people watching the recording have questions that they'd like to ask, how can they get in contact with you?
They can email either Kent or I, and both of those emails will be in that resource package that we send to the retailer. So we're always up for having conversations with folks and hearing what's happening in everyone's neck of the woods, and helping out wherever we can to advance trails and create more trails close to home for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you too for your time and for sharing all this information. I hope it was really helpful to the people trying to get involved in their community. So with that, we will say goodbye. Again, if you need any more information, contact either Kent or David or info@nbda.com, and we'll make sure to pass it on. Have a great day. Thanks,
Great.
guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.